Yo, what's going on, Winning Shot family? Man, I woke up this morning with a thought that I wanted to share with you guys. And it's not a rant. It's really just gonna be a thought, but it's gonna take me a couple of minutes to dissect. So just stick with me because I believe that this is an interesting thought that I think speaks to a larger narrative going on with the Kansas City Chiefs. We all watched the Super Bowl. We saw that it was a slaughter by the Philadelphia Eagles, 40-22, I believe. And I think it was one of the greatest performances by a defensive coordinator of all time. I think what Vic Fangio did, we hadn't seen a defense operate like that as a unit since really the Denver Broncos a couple of years ago. Vic Fangio definitely earned him a head coaching opportunity later down the line, and I think even putting himself amongst one of the greatest defensive coordinators of this era. I think Spags has an argument. I think Brian Flores definitely has an argument with what he did with that Minnesota defense this year. But I think Vic Fangio, over the course of a decade, I think Vic Fangio has shown multiple teams his defenses have been elite. But there's one guy in particular that I want to talk about that I woke up really thinking about the Chiefs' decision on this guy. And I think it speaks to a larger narrative and where the Chiefs are headed in terms of an organization. And that's Travis Kelce. We see that Travis Kelce had one of his worst performances in the Super Bowl. And this has been really a progression since the beginning of the year. We've seen that he hadn't had his best year, and everybody was just waiting for him to come alive in the playoffs. And I don't think that the Travis Kelce that we expected this year ever came to fruition. And we see that what hurt Travis wasn't even just the catching, it was the idea of getting open. And I think Vic Fangio did a lot of interesting things. We see that for a large part, he went zone, but he dedicated one or two guys to make sure that Travis Kelce didn't get open, which I think was creative by Vic Fangio. But we see that teams have been doing this all over the league for the whole year, and Travis Kelce has still found ways to get open. But there's a couple of points, and it's been all over the internet, where Travis Kelce had given up on plays, and we see that he looked dejected on the sideline. But one of the things that I thought that was very interesting is that the Chiefs recently reported that they're giving him until March 14th in order to make a decision about his retirement. Now, with guys who are rookies and kind of the second tier, third tier guys, we see that teams do this all the time in order to know how their cap is going to be affected and more so what they need to draft, right? But I think with legends, they're often given more than just a month in order to decide what they're going to do. We've seen this even with Favre. We've seen this even with Brady. There's been a couple of guys, think even like Jason Witten. There was a couple of times where they went into training camp still not knowing, but still holding out a spot for him. And usually this is the cadence with legends, right? Teams know that they're contemplating retirement, but they kind of give them a lot more leeway in determining whether they're going to retire or not, right? And I thought this was going to be the same cadence with Travis Kelce. I mean, Travis Kelce is a Hall of Famer, first ballot, no doubt. But this year has been very interesting, and I think that this Chiefs posture towards Travis Kelce and their sternness in terms of giving him a set deadline in terms of making a decision. I don't think it's about Travis Kelce, but I think it's about Taylor Swift. Listen, when we look at dynasties, there's a couple of dynasties I want to pull from, and I think that Brett Veach has aligned with one dynasty more than others. So we say take the Dallas Cowboys, the infamous dynasty that happened in the '90s with Jimmy Johnson, and we see that they were a very loud dynasty, right? You have Jerry Jones, you have Troy Aikman, you have Michael Irvin, you have Emmitt Smith, and even the year that Jimmy Johnson was let go by Jerry Jones, it was because of drama. Jerry wanted to run the team, but Jimmy Johnson was running the team, which I think Jimmy was doing a very good job in doing. But Jerry wanted the power. Jerry wanted the notoriety. And I think that decision alone kind of hurt their dynasty, right, for the next 20 years. We see that the Dallas Cowboys still haven't gone back to the NFC Championship game, let alone the Super Bowl. But then there's another dynasty, and this is a dynasty that I was able to see, I was alive for, and that's the New England Patriots. And if we know anything about the New England Patriots, they were defined based on being quiet. We see that Bill Belichick, every time he went to the podium, he wouldn't say anything. There's this infamous on to Cincinnati where he wouldn't say anything about Deflategate, anything about a lot of the drama that was around the team. He was always focused on the game. We see this even with Tom Brady. I think what he's talking about now on the Fox broadcast is probably the most we've ever heard Tom speak. Even with Rob, I mean, the way that Belichick was able to contain Rob Gronkowski, contain Aaron Hernandez, contain Julian Edelman, contain Tom Brady, it kind of speaks to a culture that was defined on silence, right? And we see that there were times where the New England Patriots would let go of star players because either they didn't align with the culture, right? Chad Ochocinco, Vince Wilfork, Randy Moss. But oftentimes it was built on a solid defense, great quarterback, and we'll pay, we'll lease guys on the outside and win Super Bowls. And they did so. And that's what I think that Brett Veach has aligned himself with. We see that in the same way that the New England Patriots let go of Randy Moss. I think it was kind of the same cadence with the Kansas City Chiefs letting go of Tyreek Hill. The Chiefs wanted to build a solid defense. They have a great quarterback, and they've been leasing people on the outside for the last 2 to 3 years. But the one thing that Kansas City was missing in their dynasty was silence. And I think that Brett Veach, he's seeing all this noise. Everybody's talking about Taylor Swift. And I'm sure the CFO of the Kansas City Chiefs is probably licking his or her chops because they probably gained revenue year over year, because more people have probably gone to Kansas City games, more people have watched Kansas City, more people have probably bought merch just because of Taylor Swift alone. But I think that the constant mention of Taylor Swift has made Kansas City the villain, because now, because of Taylor Swift, everybody is expecting them to be in the Super Bowl. They believe that the refs are aligning with the Chiefs because they want Kansas City to be in the Super Bowl so that they can show shots of Taylor Swift and they can see Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce. And even the narrative around the Super Bowl was about whether or not Travis Kelce would propose to Taylor Swift. They were talking about Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce more than they were talking about Travis Kelce, the player, and Patrick Mahomes, the player, and the Chiefs as a team on the field. And I think that Brett Veach, the GM of Kansas City, is looking at all this and saying, hey, wait, if we're going to build a dynasty, if we're going to go to back-to-back Super Bowls, and if we're even going to have the chance to go back to a Super Bowl, if we're being honest, it's going to be defined and predicated on our ability to stay silent and to minimize the drama in our locker room and in our organization. And I think that when they're putting this hard deadline on Travis Kelce, what they're really saying is, Taylor, we're glad that you brought a lot of revenue. You brought a lot of eyes to Kansas City, but now those eyes are turning to distractions. And there's been a lot of distractions around Kansas City. And in order to create a dynasty, you have to minimize distractions. And that's what I think Brett Veach is doing when he's saying you have until March 14th, Travis Kelce, to make a decision. Travis Kelce on the field has been bad, right? He's been able to have a couple of games where we see the old Travis Kelce, but even if you watch some of the videos that are on TikTok, on YouTube, we see that he has missed blocks, he's missed assignments, and he's given up on plays, and that's not the Travis Kelce that we know. And I think Kansas City has seen that film as well. And they're like, hey, guys, listen, Travis has been great to us. He probably will get a statue. He probably will get a gold jacket, and deservedly so. But who he's connected to, the more options he has with Taylor Swift and the podcast, it's creating a divide, I believe, in the locker room, and we can see on the field. And I think that with Kansas City, the goals that they have, not just as a Super Bowl winning franchise, but if they want to touch and eclipse the New England Patriots, it's going to be defined on their ability to stay silent and to constantly have that underdog mentality. And I think that they have the prime opportunity now, because they were blown out by the Eagles in the Super Bowl, to take on that David role, that underdog role. But they can't have distractions and drama as they're going back up the hill to try to overtake the Philadelphia Eagles. Let me know what you think about this.